it's, it's interesting. First, I'll say it was a, awesome experience from really kind of going back to the beginning to really, the conference, and it's going back to Gerald and your discussions.
Can you talk a little bit about that and describe, the steps?
Yeah, I think the process was, it's like anything else. All of us, whether we have been owners of companies and or executives of companies, they're like, you all know you have the intellectual capability and bandwidth to get into the space. It's basically, though, filling that gap between where your experience is and to the PE. And you really helped, one, identify that, weed out the issues, the differences, the how-tos. And really, I think the focus was the how-tos, because I kind of reflected back after the meetings yesterday and said, okay, what did we do in the beginning to the end that made it work? And it goes back to the very first sort of meetings we had on the phone, and that was more driven by you got to do this, you got to focus on tell them what you're doing, focusing on your niche, get your thesis, get your data, do your research, state your points, don't embellish, be direct. And I think I just say those points because that's kind of where I took away from it. I think your feedback along the way, the data and all of the emails and the webinars, or not the webinars, but the previous webinars and videos were extremely helpful. It's that whole buildup. It's not just one element. It's not just the conference. It's the buildup to it. And if you took advantage of all those things, it really helped to round out and prepare. So when you get to that day, you're ready, and you go through it. So that was sort of the way I felt at that moment about the process. Dealing
what
with
did you learn for your next conference? What will you do differently? What would you add? What about new niches that you can start thinking about?
Yeah. So that's a good question. And here's the thing. Maybe this is background, maybe this is history and experience. And so I have two other deal theses that I could have postured. And they were different though. They weren't all aligned in the same space. They were in different spaces, but where I had extensive experience. My conclusion in this session was I'm going in with the space that I believe I'm spending the time and effort, and not trying to dilute my effect by just trying to everybody focus. And I think, my end game is that I still would have done the same thing, because I think at the end of the day, I could have thrown out these other two and I may have gotten some other visits. But at the end of the day, the theses that I presented in the healthcare logistics, it hit with every one of them. They were all on it. They all were, as they sort of positioned and postured, thinking about it, exploring a deal. It was probably, out of the 5 meetings I had with the various firms that everybody mentioned, there were 5, I'd call them 5 singles in the baseball analogy world. And I'll probably have to steal home, to get there. But I think at the end of the day, they're all on target. They all had interest. They want to go more. And to what Joe was saying earlier, it wasn't sort of an overview, laid back, let's talk about the firm and, sort of the methodologies, our unique philosophy and all that. They did a little, and then it was sort of bow in, start peeling the onion, and they were literally, let's get into the bowels of this space, this point, to the point where we, literally filled the entire session and could have gone on. And most of those meetings are all going to result in a call, and already have with meetings scheduled, etc. So, it was awesome, and for my expectation, again, to kind of conclude with some of the other questions you asked, based on my expectation, I didn't expect to be honest, I didn't expect anything other than to go to the conference, have the interactions, hear some meetings, be able to present, theses, executive bio, and that was it. And frankly, it ended up being a lot more than that. And so it exceeded my expectations. So it was awesome. And the team did an awesome job, obviously, in this ebb and flow market, 50 people on the phone and tying in, there's always going to be issues, and that's just the way it's going to be. You got to be diligent, work through them, and find the emails that
Yep, you got it. Well, Craig, thanks so much.